I just got an alert on my phone. Some sort of nuclear alert? Is that something we get often around here?
I don't think so.
Probably some sort of new silver alert or something. Probably nothing.
I really hope that was thunder.
Welcome back to the Out of Touch podcast. I'm Chris. That's Bill, and today we're watching Godzilla from 2014, directed by Gareth Edwards. So, Bill, what did you think of Godzilla 2014?
I like this movie quite a bit. It's not my favorite Godzilla movie, but it gets a lot right.
I think this movie is like one of the best Roland Emmerich movies that Roland Emmerich didn't direct.
We've seen what happens when Roland Emmerich directs a Godzilla movie, and it's not this.
It's not this.
It's got half the cast of The Simpsons and a giant iguana.
That's true. There's a lot about this movie I like, but I feel like this movie also has like a lot of peaks and valleys. It's like, I guess to get into it, like the beginning is pretty strong with like Bryan Cranston working in the nuclear power plant, and you know, the first like instance of like a monster attack or whatever is really good. And you know, after all the Bryan Cranston stuff, it kind of just like gets a little dull for a while, but then it picks back up.
The thing is, it's like right after he dies. Oh, spoiler alert, by
Yeah.
the way. That thing that everybody was upset about, that 41 minutes into this movie, Bryan Cranston dies. Even though he was like all over the marketing, the more developed of any of the characters, and then he's just out after 41 minutes.
Yeah.
But that's when like all the real monster stuff starts to happen. So to me, that's like, we get the interesting human stuff, but then that all goes away, and then at least we have cool monster stuff to look at for the last hour.
It's true. I mean, I don't know how to go about talking about this movie. It's like, it was like the first like reboot, I guess, of like America trying to do Godzilla again after 1998. So there's a lot of high hopes for this movie, I guess.
People just wanted Godzilla to be Godzilla.
Yeah.
And they did do that.
I guess, like you said to me before, there was kind of a bit of a Godzilla drought before this movie came out.
Yes, because Toho had put the character into another temporary retirement after 2004. So we had 10 years of no Godzilla, because Toho will periodically make Godzilla rest for a while. Godzilla ran from like on and off in the 50s through the 70s, and then they stopped until the 80s. Kind of had a bit of a gap in the middle of the 80s, but then they ran all the way through the mid-90s. And then like 98 happened, and then Toho started pumping out movies in the early 2000s, and then stopped in 2004.
Yeah.
Like, they know that, like, okay, we've kind of taken this as far as we can go at the moment. Let's take a break, let people miss Godzilla, and we'll bring it back.
Yeah, you know, it's weird. With the Toho Godzilla movies, too, at least, like, the ones in, like, the 2000s and 90s, it always seemed like they were, like, putting more and more monsters in each movie.
Sometimes.
It was like, there was that one, I think it was like Final Wars or something, where like Godzilla fought like everybody.
Yeah, that was the last one they did. It was the 50th anniversary, and they were just like, what if Godzilla just punched his way through all the famous monsters and the 98 Zilla monstrosity?
Yes. But, yeah, so this was like the big return for Godzilla. I will say, like, aesthetically, Godzilla looks great in this movie. I think one thing I really like about him, and I don't know, I'm not the Godzilla expert, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I love how this Godzilla has, like, a very distinct, like, roar. Because it's the very familiar Godzilla roar, but then he kind of has that, like, end, like, rumble, sort of, at that.
Yeah, this version of Godzilla has its own kind of distinct roar.
Yeah.
It's not like the classic, really. It feels close to it, but it's kind of its own distinctive thing.
Yeah.
He also gave this Godzilla gills.
Yeah, that works. I mean,
Makes sense.
He likes swimming.
He spends a lot of time just underwater, not coming up for air.
Yeah. It's interesting. You know, I love in Godzilla movies like the weird pseudoscience and kind of how they explain, like, whoa, how do these giant monsters exist and stuff like that.
They're pre-Cambrian beings when the world was super radioactive. They have this whole like mythos and this Well, now it's a Monsterverse.
Yeah, pretty much. It started a universe because I guess like the main thing is like nuclear radiation didn't like make Godzilla. It was more or less like nuclear radiation caused Godzilla to wake up because he's like food, okay.
It woke up. It also woke up other monsters, and Godzilla seems to be just like very territorial. It's just like, hey, cut it out up there. I think when this movie came out, I was like, oh, Godzilla's like nature's fist. Stuff gets out of hand. Godzilla's just like,
yeah. Well, we got that one guy in the movie, Dr.
Sarazawa.
Let them fight.
Named after a character from the original Godzilla movie, who in fact killed the original Godzilla.
Right. With what was it? I can't remember the dumb machine they used. The hydrogen or whatever.
Oxygen destroyer.
Oxygen destroyer. That's right.
Yes.
And that kind of comes back in the sequel to this movie.
Just randomly.
Yeah. But yeah, he's kind of like Godzilla is like here to keep like the balance of nature.
Nature has an order, a power to restore balance. I believe he is that power.
Yeah. They kind of have like almost I guess you could say a pseudoscience explanation for kind of what always happened in the old Godzilla movies. This movie has a lot in common with like the later of the original series, where just like a monster threat emerges, Godzilla shows up, fights the monsters, kills them, and then just leaves.
Yeah.
There's like a half dozen Godzilla movies that follow that formula.
Yeah, it is really cool. He's territorial. It's like the Muto, who are like the new monsters in this movie, which there are two of them.
Yes, you get a male and a female.
Yeah.
The male flies, the female's just like, I'm big!
Yeah, just like, kind of like insects,
They're very insect-like, so it makes sense.
Yeah. There's a lot of details. Like, I never really, I've only seen this movie twice now, and the Mutos are like more interesting looking than I remember them to be. Like, I don't remember the female having like an egg sac, but I'm like, oh yeah, of course, because like there's all that eggs in that part of the movie. But I like parts of this movie, but like I feel like the actual main character of the movie just like kind of sucks.
I mean, I find it debatable whether or not he even is the main character of the movie.
I mean, I guess you could say Godzilla's the main character.
Not really. It's weird because it's like it feels like, I think his name is Ford. Like, he should be the main character. But it feels like the first act of this movie, it's more Bryan Cranston's character, his father. Because he has the more narrative drive, the emotional stakes. He's upset about his wife. He has that little moment where he's like, I don't even have a picture of her. And then he finds a picture and he's all like, my wife, my love. He's got the tragic backstory. Like,
he's acting his ass off.
Because what's really happening is that you're hiding something out there. My wife died here. Something killed my wife. And I have a right to know.
He is acting his ass off.
Like, it's kind of like a shame that like he dies like halfway through, because you're like,
I can't believe like a studio executive didn't watch like a rough cut of this movie and just be like, we shouldn't kill him. We should put him in more of the movie. We can reshoot some of these scenes. You're just in rooms. We can just have him there with Sarazawa talking. He could just be in the movie more.
Yeah.
Because it's not like his death really dwells on Ford much. He just has like a moment where he's like, he calls up Scarlet Witch. He's like, honey, Dad died. So anyway. So anyway, it's going to be weird when we play brother and sister next year, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know, maybe like just like the fact that it's like, it just feels like very Roland Emmerich to me, because like Independence Day, it's just like main character is in the military, his wife is like works in a hospital.
Yeah, but there's like, other than like the little bit of stuff between Ford and his dad in the beginning of the movie, it lacks all of that like the nonsense that Emmerich puts in his movies.
Yeah. Maybe.
And again, as I said, we saw what happened when Roland Emmerich made a Godzilla movie.
It's true. I mean, it was undeniably a masterpiece, but we're not going to go into that yet.
Yeah, masterpiece.
I'm just saying, maybe this movie would have kept my attention a little bit more if it had a little bit more nonsense in it. it just seems like this Ford character is like such a empty bus seat of a character.
He kind of is.
Yeah.
That's why Bryan Cranston's character shouldn't have died.
Yeah.
He had more narrative thrust to him, and then literally the movie falls out from under him.
Yeah. He's like a bomb tech in the military, so like, he kind of gets involved because they're trying to use like nuclear bombs to blow up Godzilla. Even though they're like, they eat radiation. It's like, well, what if they eat too much radiation?
I think the hope is that the explosion would kill them.
Yeah.
I don't think it would work. Well,
no, because like there's like the things in like the beginning of the movie where they're like, hey, you remember when we did that H-bomb test in the Pacific Ocean? Yeah, they were trying to kill Godzilla.
Well, yeah, it wouldn't work on Godzilla, but maybe it would have worked on the Mutos. I don't know.
Yeah.
Nukes don't kill Godzilla. That's a long established fact.
I think they even say like the Russians tried like, and they talk about like the Tsar Bomba to kill some sort of monster. That didn't work.
We even see like they have like a little no Godzilla thing on a nuke, which in the upcoming Monsterverse Apple series, they're going back to that.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first movie that started it, but like the backstory and the lore they set up is very interesting, especially since like Monarch is like a thing in this universe, and that's what the show will be about.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Like this works. Like,
And that show is revisiting the aftermath of this movie, which is crazy.
yeah, that'll be interesting to see because Godzilla does go on a. Well, it's more of the Mutos go on a pretty big rampage, and Godzilla kind of just like rampages, I guess, San Francisco a little bit.
Just while he's fighting the Mutos. I mean, he
Yeah.
has that little moment on the bridge, but he didn't just wreck the bridge until they started shooting at him.
Yeah, it's kind of like, what do they think they're gonna do with those guns?
They don't know.
It's Godzilla.
They're in a universe where Godzilla movies don't exist.
I guess that's true.
And in a universe where Godzilla movies don't exist, you see the giant monster, you shoot at the giant monster. You don't know that the bullets are just going to bounce off of it and the missiles are not going to do anything. Because there's no Godzilla movies as a frame of reference.
Yeah. I do like how Godzilla in this movie is. Like, he just looks great. He's really cool. We get to see him do some fighting in Hawaii. I wish you got to see a little bit more of that, but that's kind of like news footage.
Yeah,
sort of.
it's almost like a weird, I don't know if running joke is the right thing, where it's just like, monster fight! Oh. Monster fight! Oh. Monster fight! Yay!
Yeah, pretty much. This movie very much is like, when do we get to the fireworks factory? And I guess like now watching it again, like it didn't annoy me as much as when I was watching it in the theater.
Because
you're
just like, come on.
Just like can't wait. You're like okay, like give me some of that monster action, and then it's just like, oh, okay, Ford is gonna talk to this army guy, and then he has to help this little kid find his parents on the subway. Oh, okay.
This movie, more so than I think any of the follow-ups, is like, it's a very ground view of the monsters. Like we get a lot of the POV shots and things like that, just to give a sense of scale, which is something Gareth Edwards always seems to be pretty good at. We saw a bit of that in Rogue One.
Yeah.
Just the sense of like, oh my God, this thing is so big. Look at the destruction. Godzilla just coming out of the ocean causes a tsunami essentially.
Yeah, I guess this was like the first thing too, where the trend of like, this was the biggest Godzilla briefly, and then Japan was like, not on our watch.
Yeah, like 2 years later, Shin Godzilla. But then just to make sure, really make sure, they made the anime Godzilla even bigger than that.
Yeah.
Though now they're kind of going the other way with Godzilla -1, where he's actually a lot smaller.
Okay.
It's more around the size of Godzilla was in the original movie.
Yeah. It's
Which-
like building size, but
Yeah,
you know.
which will work for the kind of movie they're making.
Yeah.
Which I'm interested in because it's a period piece and I like that.
Should be cool.
Fingers crossed. About to feast as a Godzilla fan. Got this Monsterverse show, Godzilla -1, got another Godzilla Kong movie.
Yeah.
Come on, fuck yeah. Give me some fucking monster fights, man.
Yeah. And monster fights are cool, and the monster fight in this movie is pretty spectacular.
Oh yeah, we got some really cool moves. My most favorite moments involve the fire breath. I also like Godzilla just smacking the male one into that building. That's pretty sweet.
That is cool. Yeah, just like tail slaps him and then gets impaled.
But then it has the inverse effect of like Godzilla's like, oh man, the building just falls on him.
Yeah, the classic, the fire breath was like something that I guess like we didn't really know if it was going to happen in this movie when we initially saw it.
I think we figured it would because that was such a source of contention from the 98 movie where he didn't have fire breath. He had inflammable breath.
Yeah, he like spit out like acid or something.
Well, like hot air that if ignited would, for like a couple frames, look like fire breath but not be fire breath because they didn't want to give him fire breath because Roland Emmerich hates Godzilla. But then, like, when they revealed the fire breath, with that little, like, that pan up the tail, that sound effect going to...
Yeah.
And that was such a cool reveal. A guy like a Randy Solomon would be like, holy shit!
It's pretty cool that he does the fire breath. It's also cool that he opens up, like, the one Muto's mouth and just, like, breathes the fire into it. It's just, like, that's, like, so hardcore for some reason.
It makes you wonder why he doesn't do it more often.
Yeah. It's like, damn, Godzilla.
Kind of reminds me of Godzilla 2000. Godzilla charges into the giant open mouth of this monster Orga and then just supercharges his fire breath and explodes it from within.
Yeah, man. But, you know, it's an okay movie. I feel like it just runs a little long for me.
I understand. I mean, I appreciate the fact that it was like an attempt to do an earnest Godzilla movie because pretty much right after this, the universe just went bombastic and crazy.
Yeah. Really
Which I don't mind because it's fun.
Yeah. You know, I will say, like, each one of these Monsterverse movies has, like, gotten better and better. Like, I would say, like, Godzilla was, like, an okay start, but then, like, Kong was really good. Then Godzilla, like, King of the Monsters was, like, really good. And then Godzilla vs. Kong was like, oh, shit. Like, here we go.
I mean, that one, they just kind of stripped out all the fat and were just like, here's just an action thrill ride.
Yeah.
I still think I kind of like King of the Monsters the best. That's the most Godzilla stuff.
Yeah.
You got Ghidorah, you got Rodan, Mothra. I always kind of dug the kind of cryptozoological bent that they've put in these movies where, like, they're looking at, like, cave paintings and stuff.
Yeah. It has great lore, these movies. Like, it's interesting, you know. I think, like, the inside world thing is kind of interesting, but also kind of weird, too. Like, how's that work?
I don't know. They're
Like,
very...
How do volcanoes work, then?
I don't know. They're very much going into nonsense sci-fi territory with that.
Definitely. But
this franchise is slowly getting bigger. It's got a 5th movie, 2 TV shows now because they got an animated Kong show and now this Monarch show. Yeah,
we'll see how it goes. I do like how Godzilla beats, like, the Muto and just, like, falls asleep. He's just, like, sleeping and then
he's
just like wakes up and, like, everybody's, like, looking at him and he's just like, what the fuck are you looking at?
Just like the old Toho movies. Godzilla did his work and it's like, what is he going to do now? He's going to go back to sea. He's going back out to sea. And that's how the movie ends. He just goes back out to sea.
Pretty much. If another monster shows up, Godzilla's just like, is that somebody on my planet?
Not if I can help it.
Yeah.
Get off my lawn.
I do like how Godzilla has some character in this movie. It's not a lot, but, like, you know, he's just, like, super territorial.
Yeah, just giving him, like, even if just like a basic animal instinct of, like, a creature defending its territory.
Yeah.
Hunting prey, getting rid of rivals. It's like, it's something. It's supposed to just sort of like, why is Godzilla doing this? He's evil.
Yeah. It's not the malevolent Godzilla. He's, like, kind of like the hero Godzilla, but, like, not hero on purpose, just, like, hero out of, like, convenience where...
He's an incidental hero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm gonna kill these Muto things and then, like, just, like, go where I like to go. But then, like, the people are like, you saved us. And he's just like, I don't care about you ants. Just like, stop polluting my planet. Maybe. It'd be really weird if they made Godzilla talk in one of these movies.
It happened once.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it happened in one of the old Toho movies.
Wow.
Yeah. Godzilla versus Gigan. Godzilla and Anguirus talk for some reason.
Do they, like, talk with, like, voices, or do they talk in, like, their monster growls and then their subtitles?
So, there's voices. It sounds weird.
Oh, man.
I think in the Japanese version, there was just, like, comic book speech bubbles or something, but in the American version, there's just, like, rough translation where it's...
Something funny going on. You better check. Hey, Aguila, come on. There's a lot of trouble ahead.
Whoa.
Yeah, it doesn't happen much. It happens like a couple times in that movie, and it's super weird and awkward.
Man.
There's another time in the original King Ghidorah movie where the Mothra fairies roughly translate a conversation between Godzilla, Rodan, and Mothra, where Mothra's all like, "Come on, help, guys!" And they're like, "No, fuck you!" Like literally, they say one of them said a bad word.
Oh, Godzilla! What terrible language!
Wow.
I don't know how that works.
That's cool. Godzilla swears.
It might have been Rodan that swore. I don't remember which, but one of them swore.
Yeah. Well, in any case, I don't know what else we can really say about Godzilla 2014 except it's mostly good.
It's a largely enjoyable movie, a solid start to what's a pretty ridiculous and kind of fun group of films.
Yeah.
And they're all a little different because they all have different directors mostly. I think Godzilla X Kong is going to have the same director as Godzilla vs. Kong.
Okay.
I think.
Nice.
So, see how that goes.
You know, I'm very confused because, that Godzilla X Kong
Or
movie,
Godzilla Cross Kong.
I think it's supposed to be Godzilla Cross Kong, but
Maybe-
everybody's saying Godzilla X Kong.
Because nobody's used to that
Yeah.
outside of like the world of video games and stuff.
Yeah.
If I had it my way, it would just be Godzilla and Kong.
Yeah.
Whatever the subtitle is, The New Empire.
Godzilla v Kong, Dawn of Monsters.
We've already done that. That was the last one.
Yeah,
They punched for a bit, and then they had to team up against a secret bonus villain
it's true.
that they actually kept out of the marketing on like Doomsday.
That is pretty good on Warner Brothers, and then I guess Warner Brothers is still making Godzilla Cross Kong or X Kong.
I mean, it's more legendary, but I guess WB is still distributing them.
Okay.
I know that there was some contention between the two because of the day and date streaming stuff. That
Right.
They burned a lot of bridges with that.
Sure did.
Good job, AT&T people.
Yeah, that's one thing that's weird. Godzilla vs. Kong was just released on streaming.
I mean, I understand why. I mean, the funny thing was it still made more in theaters than Godzilla King of the Monsters did.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Man. But it was pretty good. Go watch Godzilla. Any of them, really.
Well,
Except maybe Shin Godzilla.
nah, you know what? Shin Godzilla is interesting. Maybe
It is interesting.
if you're-
It's like too interesting. I need to watch it again, honestly.
if you're not watching it in a theater where like where from your point of view the subtitles are here, but the rest of the movie's up here, so you're doing this all the time, it's probably much easier and more enjoyable to follow. But yeah, give that a watch. Give a lot of the old movies a watch. Don't watch the one called Godzilla's Revenge. Don't do it. It's terrible. It's mostly stock footage.
Oh, yeah.
Don't do it. It's bad.
Well, with that being said, that's Out of Touch podcast for this week.
Up from the depths, 30 stories high.